What is that weird shadow? Oh, it's the pan. Or maybe it's the angle of the camera. I'll fix that. Okay. It looks a little bit better. I like the size of a hobbit, so it's hard to see. Alright, so today I'm going to be trying a recipe from the Great Depression. It's called a wacky cake. It was made without using like dairy products and like such as eggs, milk, and butter at a time when it was not available. I thought it'd be a cool thing to do. I'm a little skeptical because it says to put it in an ungreased pan. I I don't have faith in that. But I want to try the recipe exactly as is. So that's what I'm going to do. So the recipe calls for 4 tablespoons of unsweetened cocoa powder, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, a half a teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, 1 tablespoon of vinegar, 6 tablespoons of vegetable oil. I'm using coconut oil because that's what I had on hand, and 1 cup of water. And I forgot to grab the water, so give me a second. I'm back. I thought I was organized, but I wasn't. But it's called for 1 teaspoon or cup of water. Where am I in life? Sorry, I'm tired from work and school, and I did a client today for a pedicure, and it was so gross. She was like, "Yeah, that's right. Get all the gunk from under there, like her toes," and I almost threw up. Didn't get a tip, but I got a hug. So, yeah. But you want to preheat your oven to 350 degrees. And we're going to take the sugar. This is the flour, but we're going to take the flour and the sugar. What else? I'm still not accepting of the fact that this should be ungreased. I want to spray it. The 1 teaspoon of baking soda, the cocoa, basically all your dry ingredients, and the salt. Salt pour out. I don't know why it calls for salt when it already has baking soda, but whatever. I'm doing it as is. So we are going to sift it all together. I always wanted to try an era, like Depression era recipe, but one that wasn't really, really gross, because there are some bad ones. One of them was a recipe compiled by the Roosevelt administration. This bitch, Eleanor Roosevelt, thought it was a good idea to give a recipe to people living in poverty for like a mushy carrot white sauce spaghetti casserole. Basically, you boiled spaghetti for 25 minutes. 25. That is almost a half an hour until it was mushy. We're going to level that and make a roux of flour and water and like oil. You know what a roux is if you know basic cooking. To make a plain white sauce and shredded carrots, mix that monstrosity together and bake it into a casserole. And she thought that was a good idea. But after we sift the ingredients, we're gonna want to make 3 depressions in this thing. It says, give me 1 second. Give me a second, because my phone keeps getting weird. Alright, so we're going to pour the vinegar into one well. That's our tablespoon of vinegar. The oil into another well, which overflowed, but whatever. I should have made a bigger well, I guess. And then we're going to take our vanilla and pour it into another well, which also got poured into, like, overflow from, my coconut oil. Because I can't decipher sizes, apparently. Alright, so we did that. And give me a second because I'm like really tired. And then pour water over all and stir. I did room temperature water so the coconut oil didn't turn into like a solid mass as soon as I poured it. It smells okay. It smells like cake. So we're going to stir this well. Well, that looked good. But you got to admire the people who lived in that era, being forced into a bad situation of extreme poverty and not being able to have basic resources available to you. You got creative, and this cake, I guess, was pretty creative. And I heard that it was really good. If you guys like this depression era thing recipe I'm doing, sorry, I'm still tired because my brain ain't working so good since I've been doing school, and that client just mind fucked me for the entire day. But if you want to see me do more depression era recipes, I'll find ones that are not gross, or maybe do one that carrot one just to see how it is, because people on YouTube, I guess, tend to suffer for their craft. But what the hell is Eleanor Roosevelt thinking of? Jesus Christ, mushy carrot white sauce casserole? That would be a slap in the face if the president's wife was suggesting that. Not because only it's gross, it shows that her and her administration, although I guess he was considered one of the greatest presidents, it just shows the clear disconnect that Eleanor Roosevelt had in not understanding what poverty was, or never having to be poor or struggle, if she thinks like the solution for poor people is mushy carrot spaghetti casserole. Like, who would want to eat that? Like, why would you suggest that? But it just shows the great disconnect. Alright, so that's mixed in. And we're going to bake it between 30 and 40 minutes. And when that's done, we'll come back to it. Okay, now we're back. I just took this cake out of the oven, so it's still steaming. I was impatient and I didn't want to wait for it to cool. And it held together very well. Even cutting it really hot, you can see that its shape retained pretty well. If you let it cool all the way, it'll be, it'll cut perfectly. But yeah, it didn't stick to the pan. And for it being just out of the oven, it cut pretty well. One thing I didn't like downside with this cake is when I cut the first little square, because I'm not really hungry, I just want to try a little piece. There was like a flour clump in there, so it doesn't look like it's appeared in the other part of the cake. So you gotta be like really, really careful with that. But yeah, it held together pretty well. It got out of the pan really well. If I was patient and waited for it to cool, it'll probably come out perfectly. But it came out pretty well for you know, still steaming right out of the pan. Like I said, I'm not particularly hungry, so I'm just gonna try a tiny piece and see how it is. It's moist, but it's not particularly sweet. There's a sweetness to it, but it's not incredibly sweet. But it does taste good. You also have to keep in mind when trying this recipe that this is a recipe from the Depression era. So they made do with what they had. So if it comes off as bland or not the intense chocolatey sweet taste that we're accustomed to, this was like for a palate for people who lived way back when. Taste changes, palates change, and it'll probably be considered more on the subtle or bland side by today's standards. Yeah, but it's moist and it's good, but it's not intensely sweet and intensely chocolatey like you would be accustomed to chocolate cake, but it is good. And it suggests that you should top it with like your own icing or powdered sugar, which I would do probably to improve its flavor or that chocolatey sweetness, or put a ganache on it, or put some fresh fruit with a little bit of powdered sugar. Because plain as is, It's like sweet, but not intensely sweet and not intensely chocolatey. But it's good and it's a cheap vegan alternative. And it worked really well with the coconut oil. And it held together really well. Um, it came out of the pan, which I was skeptical of because it said to not grease it at all. But I guess with the oil, it's fine. But, top it with whatever, make it your own. I would top it with powdered sugar, or maybe just some fresh fruit and a little bit of powdered sugar. And it's a Depression era recipe. It's vegan. It worked really well with coconut oil. So, it's a versatile thing. And that's pretty much all I have to say about it. I'm impressed that it actually turned out really well and it's pretty moist. I would eat it properly, but I'm not hungry. Thank you to the 272 people who've subscribed to me. If you want to see more poorly put together videos, like, subscribe, share. Leave me a suggestion in the comment if you ever made this or what recipe you would like to see me do. Hell, maybe if I get enough votes or feedback, I'll make that gross carrot thing that Eleanor Roosevelt once suggested pushing on people because she thought that was food. And yeah. Thank you for watching and listening to my Eleanor Roosevelt tangents. And thank you again for watching, and thank you again for subscribing. And I'm Lisa with the Cheap Cooking Channel. Have a good day. Stop.